An inmendham video. How unusual. Yeah, sorry. Um, yeah. So, kind of a strange subject, in the sense it's an old subject, but a goodie. And you can make it into any kind of, you can broaden the subject so easily, so I no doubt will do that. It's cigarette taxes. And like I said, the bigger picture is, what does it say about our civilization, about the character of the people in the majority, the hypocritical majority, as it should be called, um, and the character of our democracy, the meaning of our Constitution, basically established to prevent the very thing that cigarette taxes represent, which is just a grotesque exploitation of a minority. Just basically saying, I don't want to pay the taxes, somebody else has got to pay the bill, I'll make them do it, the slaves to my majoritarian democracy, the slaves in it. And that's all cigarette smokers have become, is a thing to prey on, a thing to exploit by people who think they have a holier-than-thou position from which they're arguing, and it's a shitty position. They're fat donut-eating, beer-swilling, cell phone driving asswipes, pointing their finger at cigarettes and saying that's evil. And most of their lifestyle is evil, is ungreen, is big fat SUV waste, is killing the planet, literally. They're giving the fucking planet cancer, and they're worried, they say, about other people getting a premature cancer. And it's just all based on lies. Lies of expenses that never happen. Cigarette smokers are a huge net benefit to society by not collecting their pensions, not collecting their Social Security as much, not collecting as much health care, ironically. These are all truths, facts, and they lie instead with the propaganda. And so, what can you call that? When you're winning an argument with overt lies, just things that are completely not true, and using them as your strongest arguments, it's kind of disgusting. It's like calling inheritance taxes the death tax. No, it's not a tax on dying. It's a tax on freeloading. Why don't you call it the freeloader tax? That's all. The preposterously silly welfare to the non-needy tax. Yeah, no, we don't need that. We don't need to give welfare to the non-needy. So it's all these lies. I mean, everything's just sold with lies. And the system is supposed to not let that happen. So the whole idea of the Constitution is basically a minority rights instrument. It's basically exists. You don't have to put it. You don't have to put things like freedom of speech in the Constitution if it's not because you're saying something the majority wants to hear. You don't need a law. You don't need protection. You need protection when you're saying something unpopular. When you have an unpopular vice, you need protection. And so, in all the principles in the Bill of Rights, there's clearly a sense that you can't be a hypocrite. That just because you can't just say, I want to hear the stuff I like to hear and I don't want to hear anything I don't like to hear. You know that that's not the rules. The rules are you got to take the good with the bad. And that principle is all over the place in those bills of rights. And the principle that you shouldn't have the right to say my majority vices will be protected from excessive taxation, and I will only crucify and slaughter the people who have who are in the minority. And part of the instrument that was supposed to protect them was the Congress, and the Congress doesn't do that because the Congress doesn't represent us based on our ideology. It represents us based on our geography. And this is such an overtly obvious flaw that everybody should be able to raise their hand and say, Yeah, we should fix that. Because it doesn't make any sense. I'm not my geography. I'm what I believe. And so we have a democratic representative system that basically says, unless you segregate yourself, like if all the cigarette smokers lived in New England, in Connecticut, New York, New Jersey, and Maine, or something like that, then they'd have political voice. They'd have congressmen and senators that could protect their rights. But because they're spread out all over the country, they can't win a single election. They can't get a single representative. Even though they have 20 million, 25 million in population, they're not represented as 25 million. They're not represented as 1 million. They're not given a single representative. I mean, oh yes, there's people in Congress who will defend the tobacco companies, but they're only doing that because of a geographic interest. It's not ideology, it's geography again. And they're protecting a company, they're not protecting the users, they're protecting the interest of the producers. Huge difference. And so it's just a huge flaw that all of these minority interests have no voice and are exploitable because they don't have that voice. Because they can't make any noise in Congress, and they can't say to the other congressmen, well, if you're going to fuck over my constituents, then I'm going to fuck over your constituents. So yeah, instead of us making a deal, on making this bridge thing happen or some other thing you want to have happen, fuck you, okay? I know, I'm going to fuck your state. I'm going to fuck your people. I'm going to fuck the people who put you in office. If you're going to fuck my constituents. And see, we don't have congressmen like that. We have congressmen who win these stupid majorities and say half the people who didn't vote for me are now my property. I will protect their interest even though they think I'm an asshole. Even though I don't agree with a single fucking thing they believe in. I'm going to claim to be representing them. Why would you want a system that's stupid when we can have so much better a representative democracy by just getting rid of this idea of state congressmen? Congressmen should represent people, not states, not regions, not districts. They should represent beliefs. And so that's the mechanical reason why this egregious crime happens, is because that crappy Congress gets to basically say what the Constitution means. And they've decided the Constitution doesn't mean hypocrisy is wrong, and it doesn't mean that if you're going to use a certain kind of evidence to prove somebody guilty, you have to allow the same evidence to prove everybody else guilty. That should be the rules. That the evidence, fair trial, equal protection under the law. And our rights don't have equal protection because they've decided to say, no, cigarette smoking isn't a right. Cigarette smoking isn't a privilege or a liberty that we should be able to sign up for. And again, I'm not defending cigarette smoking, so don't get me wrong. I would have laws against minors smoking. Anybody who gave a minor a cigarette would pay a fine, and then do it twice, you go to jail, the whole thing. Quite draconian. No kid should be addicted to cigarettes. They shouldn't be able to get enough of them to ever become addicted to them. That's a truth. And that we should make sure happens. And because this is a vice. But there's a bunch of people addicted. And so that's another one of these things where, oh, wait a minute, they haven't heard that nicotine is addictive? In laboratory experiments, more addictive than heroin with laboratory animals. The minkies and the rats, when deprived of two addictions, a heroin addiction and a nicotine addiction, when they get to go and get the stuff, get a fix, they go to the nicotine first. Yeah, that's right. It's that bad. So it's, you're going to plead ignorance. Oh, I don't know what addiction is. I've never heard of that word. But I'm going to sit there and exploit people who are addicted and just keep increasing the taxes on something because I know they'll, mortgage the house to buy their cigarettes. I know how bad they'll need them and that they'll pay the fee. to get them because they just can't quit. And they haven't heard about all the people who have quit and ended up, you know, falling off the wagon. These are facts, and they just pretend they're not true. They pretend it's, oh no, I don't have to accept that I'm tormenting and torturing people with these taxes, and especially poor people. Most of the smokers are poor people. It's an ignorant man's addiction, no doubt about it. But like I say, most of them got addicted when they were kids, and you can't fault everybody for that. But again, this prosecution, when all you have to do is grandfather the old addicts out. Let them die with their stupid habit and just try to prevent anybody from acquiring the stupid habit. Now that's an admirable thing to do. That's saving the children. But don't pretend it won't cost you more money in the long run, because it will. You know, don't say, we're going to save money doing that, because you're not going to. You're going to lose money. If you save everybody, guess what? Social Security doesn't work anymore. There's the whole thing that makes it work, is that people pay into it who collect nothing out of it. They die before they collect the money. That's what makes it financially sound. You need people to die early, or the system won't work. Idiots. I mean, I'm sorry, but you know, these are just the facts, and no one cares. And so that's the bigger picture, right? So the system, the Congress should be able to protect us, but it can't because it's not representative. The Constitution, was written by smart men, and basically says it. It could say it more explicitly. I mean, it certainly could say something better than equal protection under the law. Could make it more explicit that you can't persecute a minority. I mean, Supreme Court decisions have said that. So they've basically said you can't do what they're doing now. And they've basically overturned those previous decisions that made it clear that you can't have double standards, that you can't treat a minority vice differently than you treat a majority vice. That was an established principle, and they've broken it, you know, with political maneuvering. And that's all. So the Constitution is only as good as the men who are protecting it, and obviously they're no good. They don't give a shit about the principles. They just give a shit about the politics. And pleasing the majority is good politics. And that's the sad, pitiful, disgusting truth. And so the majority is rewriting the Constitution one article at a time, degrading it one little bit at a time, because that majority influence creates political influence, and the political influence rewrites the document. And slowly but surely, the hypocritical majority is rewriting the Constitution. So we don't have a Constitution to protect us. We don't have a Congress to protect us. And then we have to fall back on the character of the human civilized being. You know, one expects in a civilized country that people can recognize, I see, I am being a hypocrite. I can see it is kind of bullshit for me to say I'm entitled to a mortgage deduction, but the renter isn't entitled to a rent deduction. You know, that's just hypocrisy. Why am I? The renter's in a worse position than I'm in, and I'm going to treat him more worse? Can that make any sense? No, it can't. But the problem is the majority then has to say, oh, wait a minute, but that's not in my personal interest. And that's all these assholes are saying, is what's in it for me? So every law just comes by them and they just go, what's in it for me? Because they got no fucking compass of principle. Principles don't fucking matter to these assholes called humans. And unfortunately they think they're intelligent humans, which is even a bigger joke. Or they think they're civilized fucking humans. A bigger joke. When they really they don't even understand the word civilization. Because what it means is civilizations are made by people who understand broken things don't get fixed by not fixing them. You have to fix something that's broken, or it doesn't get fixed. That's what a civilized human understands. And that sometimes the fix isn't going to be personally convenient, but it's better for the overall function. In the end, it will be better for everyone. in the end it'll have long-term gain for a little bit of your short-term pain. And that's the truth. And we're not even really talking about that, right? We're talking about an overt theft. It just has to do with just saying the taxes have to be paid. I don't want to pay them. I want him to pay them. And they're not even thinking a tiny bit better than that. So that's how far off principle this is. It's such an overt cheat and theft, by pie eating, soda drinking, meat eating, heart attack victims. And that's all part of the faked evidence, is every woman who ever got lung cancer and smoked, they blamed it on the cigarette. Even though we know that a certain percentage of women will get lung cancer, just naturally. They get more lung cancers. So the facts, again, who cares? I know of personal cases, people I know closely, where a guy died of dementia, okay? And the dementia was so bad that, he wasn't eating or drinking properly, so he was getting fluid in his lungs from the bacteria. And so they called his pulmonary failure that he died of smoking related, even though he hadn't smoked for 40 years. So they called his death smoking related, even though there was no cancer, no emphysema, no evidence of really any pulmonary failure besides the fact that he couldn't eat or drink properly. And they called that a smoking related death. So, clearly this is the fraud in the system, the propaganda. So it's not so much, it's even worse than I'm saying, because they're not only willing to be hypocrites overtly, they're willing to lie. They're not just sneaking by like, oh, no one's looking, I got away with it. They're deliberately rigging the system. It's like the soda machine. You put 1 quarter in and it pops the soda out by accident. And you say, oh, thanks, I got a 25-cent soda. Cool. No, they're jimmering the machine. They're not just grateful for sneaking something by. They're doing the work of breaking the machine by using this propaganda. They're aggressively cheating to steal the money from the cigarette smokers. They're doing it aggressively, crossing the lines of honesty and having any integrity. That's how bad it is. So yeah, another sad story about living with humans. They suck. It's just horrible that we have to live in a world full of such lying scum. Again, who can't have any kind of, just no integrity to the crisis here. Just this huge, overblown cigarette smoking, oh yeah, this is the biggest crisis in the world. No, not even close. Unlike alcoholism, that's killing kids and young people on the highways, cigarettes always, 99% of the time, kill somebody late in their life, not early in their life. So the amount of life it robs people of is much smaller. And it's clearly not, they call them the golden years, but they're really not. And anybody rational knows they're not really the golden years. And especially those really late, living the long life isn't necessarily something to congratulate somebody for. Because those last 10 or 12 or 15 years might not be so swell. And that's just a fact. So they can't even get that part of the argument right, in the sense that they just do this generic, all deaths are the same. And all deaths are not the same. Kids being paralyzed by a drunk driver is not the same as somebody dying at 72 from emphysema. Not the same at all. Well, it's similar. Dead is dead. But clearly the quality of life being suspended or broken or taken away, or however you want to describe it, is clearly there's a qualitative difference in the life that will be denied. this whole philosophical argument about how even that doesn't make any sense, in the sense that, frankly, yeah, there's very little to gain by living too long. Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, it's just another sad story about human beings and their dishonesty. Their scheming, conniving ways of rationalizing their behavior, of creating these fake boogeymen that they're really attacking because they have some kind of personal interest, are the ones they protect because of some personal interest. I mean, they're all acting like, the good wife of the guy who's just been convicted of all kinds of serial rapes, Mrs. Cosby, for example, or something. Just make excuses, excuse after excuse after excuse, for what is basically just a sellout. I don't want to be inconvenienced by the truth, and it's really inconvenient to pretend I really don't understand that this is a little more complicated than cigarettes are the devil and they must be stopped. And that there's personal interests of the people who smoke cigarettes, that the only interest isn't the tobacco companies. The people who are addicted also have a life to live, and frankly they'd like to do it without your fucking interference, because it's really none of your fucking business. And you can see it's gone so overboard where you could be sitting in the middle of a 15-acre field and nobody's around you smoking a cigarette, and some asswipe will complain. Like, he's not bothered by truck exhaust, he's not bothered by the train exhaust, he's not bothered by the chemical plant exhaust, he's not bothered by the exhaust from his own fucking car that has, by volume, just, in a week, a ton more baddies it's putting into your air, especially outdoors, like I say. I mean, yes, you don't run your car in the house, and so yes, I'd argue you have some closed space rights, but frankly, they're all really just based on a bunch of bullshit. I mean, I grew up in a world where everywhere you went there were cigarette smokers, and they never bothered me any. It never occurred to me to say, oh, this is just unacceptable, I can't, choke, I'm going to die. No. And I didn't see anybody else doing that either, frankly. So maybe the majority is now, not only is it the hypocrite majority, but it's somehow the, physically pathetic majority, and they just can't take anything. Well, of course, but they can stand all the, oh yes, I can have the dog that I've had surgically attached to my body, and no, it's standard, doesn't bother me. Oh, I'm not allergic to that. But cigarettes? Oh. I mean, it's just such crap, and it's obvious crap, and you point out that it's obvious crap, and you won't get anything called a rational reply. It's just propaganda, and that's it. They live on it, and that's all they got, and it has nothing to do with anything else besides them just going by every principle that flies by. What's in it for me? What's in it for me? What's in it for me? They just can't see the principle. They can't see that what's in it for civilization should be the question. What's in it for decency, fairness? Fairness you shouldn't be going, when the fairness principle comes by, you shouldn't be going, what's in it for me? That's being totally obnoxious. You can't possibly understand the principle of fairness if you're going, what's in it for me, as you judge the implications of fairness. I mean, shit. So yeah, people just fucking suck. The majority of people are fucking assholes. Fucking assholes. Lying, cheating, conniving, self-interested cheaters. They're fucking weaselly, lying cheaters. And it sucks. But somehow we have to make a world with them in it. You can't kill the majority. Probably. So we have to somehow find a way to fix it with the breakers still in the game, and with most of the people being breakers. So somehow the fixers have to work around this huge liability, the cancer of the majority, this tumor of stupidity and selfishness growing on the human condition. And somehow we have to turn that cancer into constructive tissue. We have to make it back into something that isn't a blight. Have to reconfigure it, reform it, remake it into decent human being. There seems no other option. But what do you do that with when people are this evil? What do you reform them with? A potion? A magic spell? As you can't use logic. I think you have to have, like, naked chicks singing and dancing or something, maybe. Cigarettes are fun, cigarettes, some kind of, I don't know. But again, it's really not about cigarettes. It's about all the principles that are being fucked over by all these fucking hypocrites. So, there. Rant number 3,684,491. For posterity. At least I attempted to do something about it. By at least pointing out, this is the problem, now we gotta have a solution. And I had hoped the solution was, you make a video, you make a persuasive argument, and it persuades the assholes. But facts are just not important to the assholes. I mean, I'm proving that with the physics arguments. It just doesn't matter. The truth is just not interesting to people. And that seems quite obvious. So it is a dilemma. That's all I can say. Dilemma. I'm right in the middle of a dilemma. And if I can't use just words, I have to use some sort of, I have to put it to music. I have to somehow weasel the truth into them. And it's just so disgusting. To somehow have to cheat the truth a little, to weasel fairness into people's brains. I mean, who wants to do that? I mean, that just sucks. Oh, I have to cheat to win the honorable war. The war defending honor and honesty. I mean, that just is so unappealing. You want to keep your white hat on. You don't want it to, you don't want to have to be a spy or a traitor or, whatever it takes. You don't want to have to go there. You want a straight up fight between right and fucking wrong. And it's wrong to exploit addicts because you don't want to pay taxes. It's fucking wrong. Okay, there. Yes. I'll think about it. Yeah, I don't know. Somebody comes up with a plan, a mob, some sort of realistic pitchfork attack on the hypocritical majority. I'm in. I'll go for something just totally ludicrous because, we really just don't have much. But we've got to somehow corral the assholes. The asshole majority. The idiocracy has to be controlled. Whether it knows it's being controlled or not. Whether we have to do it through some secret club plan. Join our club. Spike their water or something. Anyway, no, enough of video. Till the next time. And such.